Hello and welcome to Harmoniously podcast. So today with us we have Sean. Hi Sean.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. So he's an interesting person. But before starting, and I'm so excited about having you. Thank you so much for coming. I want, as always, invite you to just take a couple of breaths together. That you can close your eyes if you're not driving, of course, and just take a couple of breaths. Just connect to each inhale and exhale. Allow yourself to be arriving to this place and time. And drop into the now, the present moment. Land slowly. All right. So again, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to having you. So before start recording, we chat a little bit. It's been a while we haven't seen each other, and Sean has such an interesting life on top of being a therapist and neuroscientist, right? But please tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, I don't know what you want to know, but um,
Everything.
I'm Sean, um, I work in the fields of right now. I work for a neuroscience company, and I also work as a psychotherapist, mostly interested in psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. That's my modality of choice, as well as really working with trauma and complex trauma. Um, PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, and for a lot of people, treatment-resistant depression.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting. I'd like to know more about this approach that you're using, and also, are you working with any kind of psychedelic or some psychedelic in particular?
yeah, so I mean, I'm not administering any
Mhm.
psychedelics. That's definitely not my role. But I'm mostly doing, I mean, you know this very well. I'm doing a lot of the preparation, integration,
Mhm.
um, and for some people who may have had more complex trauma, that seems to be what I work a lot with. So maybe some of the medicines will reveal some things to them, and it will be much more difficult for some people to integrate these stories or these unraveling of the stories that they've constantly had in their minds and their hearts. So we just kind of work together to explore what is coming out of these medicines. And I'm talking about all medicines. I don't discriminate as to what somebody takes, but whatever they find right for them. And yeah, it seems to be right now, at least for me, from my seat, like a therapist, probably one of the better, if not the best tools I found so far to help someone explore their own mind.
Mm.
And maybe within that, start to ease the suffering if they are suffering because of old habit pattern or stories or attachment wounds, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
That's how I'm kind of using them as an adjunct tool. The,
So, um, were you? I mean, before using this approach, uh, were you already treating this kind of patients without psychedelic, uh, or you starting helping PTSD and all this complex trauma when you started also approaching integration or preparation with psychedelic?
Yeah, so actually, well, before I became a therapist, I was working for quite a while in the field of neurofeedback.
Mhm.
So first it was just quantitative electroencephalograms and regular encephalograms, so EEG or QEEG. So like brain scans with a cap that they put on the gel in your head, and you're reading the electrical activity coming off the scalp.
Mhm.
And one of the uses for it is it's still kind of up in the air of whether it really, really helps, but it seems as helped and helped quite a lot of people was the use of QEEG guided neurofeedback for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I worked with that for quite a few years. At a startup, it was almost like 7 to 10 years, something like that.
Mhm.
And within that, when I was working in that field, I also got to work for a long time co-patenting in the United States, so a patent for the use of QEEG to diagnose post-traumatic stress disorder in the brain. So yeah, it's been an interest of mine for quite a while, and then after becoming a therapist, even more so, I think.
Mhm.
So I
And
haven't.
so, what is the what have you seen as difference when treating someone that also used in the therapy some psychedelic?
So what have I seen as far as the difference? I think probably one of the biggest differences right now that I'm seeing is that at first, when people start to use these psychedelics, it's almost as like their central nervous system is a little bit more downregulated. So there's not as like their how do I describe it? It's almost as though they're not like constantly on edge or feeling as though they are under attack.
Mhm.
So whether it be under attack by someone else, but most importantly under attack by their own mind or really maybe their own brain. I don't know which one goes first. But if they're not having these feelings of heightened sensitivity to potential external dangers as well as internal dangers, then I think it leaves more space to actually allow some of this like compassionate inquiry, or to call it like Mate, where
Mhm.
one is more able to allow themselves to be open to exploring and be curious as to whatever comes up and less kind of closed off because
Mhm.
we feel like as though we're under attack. And at least that's what I'm finding in the psychotherapy space. And I think it's really, honestly, really beautiful that these medicines, what I call them, they allow for this extended period of space to
Mhm.
be just kind of okay to whatever presents itself in the moment. And even if that is going back and looking at these stories of whatever happened or whatever may have caused this particular trauma and allowing this at that time, at that moment in time, allowing the space to go back, look at that story, and instead of just shutting down or immediately reacting, we can look at that story a little bit longer and say,
Mhm.
yes, this happened to me, but it was not my fault that this happened to
Mhm.
me. And so I think in the way that my clients are currently using psychedelics, and I think that seems to be kind of the biggest benefit.
Okay, yeah, that's beautiful. So, I understand correctly. So it's like um, they're more into. I mean, you said like as I said, they're like more into attacking. I had this image almost so like for the body that will be our immune system that attack us. So autoimmune disorder in a sense. In this case, will be more like our mind or brain to attack us. So you cannot call it autoimmune disorder, but almost like so like the same. Some part of you that is attacking you in a sense. And so making you more in always fight and flight mode and not be able to have that neutrality to review the traumas and so be able to stay more there, maybe release that energy or also be able to see in a different ways and not the the way that would normally or someone normally sees that continue to perpetuate the same trauma. Is that more or less the way you were saying?
Yeah, I think that's perfectly well said. It's you don't have as much in that moment as the ruminating mind, the monkey
Mm-hmm.
mind coming online and just constantly going and going and going. Maybe just for a little bit of time, it gives us a little bit of space. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
very important.
It's almost like You're in the movie theater. You forgot you're in the movie theater. You look at the screen. You keep seeing the same scene. You just like really get overwhelmed. So that's I want to turn on the lights. And you're like, oh, I'm just watching this movie, and you're
Yeah,
able to see on a more from a more neutral space.
exactly. But I mean, just before the story, we were talking a little bit about traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I heard someone say this yesterday, and it's for some reason I always bring things back to psychedelics, but it's like, if you're living in a community and there's like drama or whatever's happening in your day-to-day life, you're so focused on this little one part of the cosmos of the universe of the world. And as soon as you travel, so you take off in the airplane, and all of a sudden everything zooms out, zooms out, zooms out, and you realize all these little interactions and stories that has everything that your conscious energy in your life and your focus is about. You just kind of zoom out, and then you can see from above. It's like, oh wow, like there is a lot more going on, and then we just forget, just part of
Yes,
being human.
it's true. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we know our mind or our view becomes so narrow. Like at the airplane metaphor, or this great one. So with psychedelics are like these airplanes or rock ships sometimes.
Yeah,
And we're
sometimes rocket ship, take the toad, take the 5-MeO, like a rocket ship.
yes, sometimes more of a rock ship. That's why we're able to see from a different view, a higher view, and is that allowed to overcome traumas or also expand our consciousness. Um, so what's the approach that you like to use with your patient?
Well, I think it's I would say like a non-directive approach, really, and that's kind of a cop out that a lot of therapists use. But I really try to not guide. I try to not lead. It's wherever that person is going, and I try to this idea from Gabor Mate, he calls it compassionate inquiry. So really allowing the person to wherever they go, just kind of promoting staying curious as to whatever comes up, deeply curious, but holding a lens of compassion and allowing whatever comes up, whether we say good or bad, just observing, observing, and not judging as much as one possibly can. And by not judging and just observing and seeing what comes up, I think there can be much less of attachment to whatever these stories are. And through that lens of just allowing, then we can start to shift where our attention goes. So, so I'd say that. And then I worked with a great supervisor a long time, Gloria Maddox, that she's like psychoanalytically and psychodynamically kind of geared. So that has really helped me a lot. She continues to help me so much in that realm. And then I do like trauma focused stuff. So a lot of what they call EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Yeah.
That's one of my big tools.
Can
And
you explain that more?
yeah, so I don't know. Have you heard of EMDR before?
I think you heard it one time, so you need to explain more.
Okay, so basically EMDR is just the type of therapy. It's highly touted by the U.S. military for veterans. It's one of the top tools they use. So basically, what you're doing is you're sitting with a particular event or feelings around the event, like this what they call negative cognition of self. And so you're holding this negative feeling that you have kind of created about yourself around a particular event. And then this is where it kind of gets weird. Then you're moving your eyes left and right, left and right, left and right, left and right.
Mm-hmm.
I do it all virtually. So I use basically an app, and I send it to the client, and they watch this ball and they move their eyes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I know it
For
sounds a
how
little
long?
it depends for each person.
Okay.
You gotta find the particular threshold, but you just also it's kind of like non-guided, non-directed. So they hold this idea of negative cognition itself. They follow the ball in this case, but it can also be like these vibrating paddles, these lights that go
Yeah.
across, or the finger in person with the therapist, and you just kind of feel what's coming up. And strangely enough, a lot of emotions come up. A lot of emotions tend to come up, tend to come up, tend to come up, and kind of in a way like psychedelics, it tends to discharge a lot of energy around particular memories, around particular stories, and yeah, that's one of my tools that I'm going to go to for trauma therapy.
That sounds very interesting.
I like it.
And there's a lot of thera- therapeutic and also like I'm not a coach, so coaching tools that I think if you don't know that they work so good, they just looking from the outside, but then you may think, what is that? It looks like crazy, but it's interesting how that actually there are so many tools that are so simple and effective. And it's important to explain that, I think, to people, to patients, to clients, so that they can benefit from that. Because if they approach a tool thinking that's stupid, that would not work anyway. That is just like a little parenthesis. But it sounds really cool. I love it. It's really, really interesting.
I didn't believe in it before I went into it. When I went to the training,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm quite a skeptical person, I guess I would say.
Uh-huh.
And I experienced it myself, and I was like, wow, this is very, very weird. This is very
Uh-huh.
weird. And yeah, ways, work relatively well with the people that I work. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of mindfulness stuff. I come from like a mindfulness background. So
Yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah, so what is your mindfulness background then?
um so I think I started at 20. I was living in Thailand when I was 20. I went to my first 10-day silent meditation retreat
Mm.
around 14 years ago. And that was my first kind of exposure to what they call Vipassana meditation. And yeah, I continued to go to these retreats. I made it a big part of my life. I did, I think just the beginning of last year, I was in a 2-year, something like that, a 2-year mindfulness meditation teacher training um,
Mm.
through like Jack Cornfield and Tara Brock, where I would, have like a group, but we meet with my group 2 times a month to do meditation and most importantly, talk about Dhamma. And I continue to have a meditation teacher who's very important to me and very important to the practice. And it's just part of my daily life. That's my, the retreats. Hopefully, going to go to another retreat in a few months. I actually just missed the 20-day retreat, which I'm kind of sad about because I didn't see it in my calendar.
Oh, so um, so you said it's part of your daily life. So what is your daily practice for this mindfulness?
I mean, this year I actually shifted quite a bit. Usually I do a lot of Vipassana or insight meditation, is what they call it. It's part of my, but this year I shifted to a different type of meditation a little bit, and I'm mostly focusing on now just to see if it'll help my day-to-day life. What they call metta meditation or loving kindness meditation.
Okay.
Um, that's one, daily. Usually do it in the morning. But just kind of saying particular phrases and words about first like myself, and then someone I'm very close with, and then a neutral person, and then someone I may have held in a negative regard.
Mm.
Saying just kind of words, like positive words about them. Like, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be well, may you be peaceful. And the kind of idea, that's my understanding of it at least, is that you just not really try to sit on these words so much, but you just say them and over again while trying to hold this particular person, whether self, family,
Mm.
neutral person, someone you have a negative regard. You just say it over and over, and it's as though you're planting the seed, and you just keep watering the seed every day. Water, 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 water. Keep going, and then eventually, you find that your heart just opens up more and more, I'm finding it quite
Mhm.
effective for just
Mm.
being in this 21st century world.
Yeah, that sounds great. Um, how do you also use this tool of mindfulness with your patients?
Yeah, so how do I use it with those that I work with? I think a lot of it so much is just acceptance, and not just acceptance of self, but
Mhm.
acceptance of whatever is in this reality. There is like they talk about this a lot in the Vipassana retreats. It's like you must accept reality it is, not as which you wish reality to be. So we have no way of changing whatever this reality is. So if you want to use if a person wants to use their energy, their conscious energy and their time to try to fight against everything that is right now in the present moment, it's going to be relatively hard. I mean, like to swim upstream from the universe, it
Mhm.
seems rather difficult. But if we just start to, if we can try, at least make an attempt to try to live in the present moment. And the present moment is like, oh, I feel the fan right now blowing on my face. I feel like my legs attached to my chair, which my feet are on the tile floor. And I can see you. So if we start to live more and accept whatever is right now, because it's the only thing that we have is a present moment, and it's not um, of some sort of attempting to remember something about the past, which a lot of times can lead to depression if we stay in this too long, or we ruminate about the future or what could be, which a lot of people, it's
Mhm.
anxiety.
Mhm.
And we start to live in the present moment, which they call the art of living. And I think we can free ourselves from a lot of the minds that the mind and the tricks that the mind start to try to do to us.
Mhm.
Because the mind is a tricky thing. I mean, sit for 10, 15 minutes and see if you can just notice the breath coming from your nose and touching your upper lip. Just try. See how long you last. If you last more than 10 seconds without your mind completely going somewhere else, well, let me know.
Yes, and I know it is a very hard exercise for for so many people, especially nowadays, we're not helping that at all with all the social medias and medias and all the constant distraction. And also how cities are built. So because as soon as you go to nature, that really helps you. It's a conducive space for be for your mind to calm down. You go in any like cheapest supermarket or anything, everything everybody does daily. And it's here you have so many distractions just to give more input to your mind to distract yourself and go to the past to the future or to create anxiety or depression or all of that you said. So yeah, so sounds so good. But about that, I would like to ask you, as you're also a neuroscientist, and you said you used to do brain scan. Have you ever done a brain scan about people, well, on people that are meditating or that are more the practicing mindfulness or so on, or psychedelic?
Yes.
Mhm.
So back when I used to work a lot in EEGs, one of the big things that we would do is when we were doing neurofeedback specifically, we would kind of the ways that we were trying to bring meditation to more people, bring Vipassana meditation to more people, was that we would teach them how to do Vipassana, and then we'd have them do neurofeedback while they were doing Vipassana. And then a lot of the times we were taking the recordings of their brain scans. Uh, it was like kind of my own way of trying to spread this whole idea of Vipassana meditation or insight meditation. So that was like, and I did that for so many years, so many years. So that was kind of my experience with that. I always wanted to do scans on those who are in either long-term retreat or even monastics, but it's relatively difficult because you don't want to interrupt anybody's process. And then as far as psychedelics,
Mhm.
and yeah, I've done scans on people doing psychedelics. Like we were talking about before the podcast, I went to it was like 2019, right before the pandemic. Went to Envision Festival, and we were holding a big study that,
Mhm.
or I mean, people were taking psychedelics, told them to come to the booth, and they would take psychedelics, whatever it was. We'd hold the space for them, and then put the cap on them, take a bunch of pre and post data, and then record those EEGs and see if we can find anything in those EEGs. One thing I can say, it's really difficult to take proper EEG data when there's like, a huge DJ set going on in the background and someone's on MDMA and all they want to do is do like this or they try to like hold their head straight. It's really difficult.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure. So what are the results? I want to be here. So both of the mindfulness scan
Uh,
and also on psychedelic. Well, what did you find? What did you find out?
yeah, so we didn't when that study. I mean, we by the time that study was completed, I had left the company. We had a big kind of falling out because of COVID, so I never really followed up and saw what was there. However, I know there is some EEG data as far as completed research studies that I've seen online for people doing ayahuasca. Taking taking ayahuasca and then putting on the cap. To be honest, I don't know that much about it because I've never really followed up with it. But I know people have done it. I do tend to question a lot of the research in it because I've seen some of the hardware that is used while doing some of these. Like a lot of people use what's called like dry sensors, which don't seem to get the best signal. But that's like getting way too much in the weeds. Yeah, I know that as far as like real research that is being done in this field is mostly using like fMRIs, and this is being done by a lot of Robin Carhart Harris. Let's see, so fMRI studies, yeah. So a lot of the great research being done for like fMRI research data, and that was done that I've seen like this researcher. His name is Robin Carhart Harris, who was at London Imperial College, but I believe now he's at University of California, San Francisco, something like that. But they're doing real hard neuroimaging with the use of psychedelics. And he has a great paper. It's called The Entropic Brain. I highly suggest anybody to read it and get familiar with it because it has some interesting theories. What's actually going on inside the brain and then potentially the mind while under the use of psychedelics.
Okay, so he is saying separate this before brain and mind. So would you explain this works? I'm interesting to know why you separate that. And I mean, I understand that, but I mean, I may imagine, I may speculate on that, but I want to hear your explanation.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the best explanation as to what those two are. I would say there's definitely some sort of overlap. You kind of have to. But then when you say that, then you drink something like ayahuasca, and then you want to believe that everything that's held within this ball of mostly fat that our cranium is holding. I don't know. It's really hard for me to make sense of all of it. Do I believe that the brain holds the mind? Yeah, I think in a way. But then if you listen to, I don't know, something like Carl Jung's theory of the collective conscious, then it's like it gets really weird. So I don't really know. And I say the brain and the mind is separate, not as like looking at like some scientific valid statement, but more of my ability to personally make sense of it.
Yeah, it's not like, I guess as your neuroscientist, you were more prone into like thinking out the matter parts and the more subtle parts. So I'm but anyway, so I'm not much into too much into thinking about these two parts. I mean, it too, but But yes, I probably would say so. The brain is more of the matter, right? More part of the this with body, which is like the matter, what you can touch, and the mental body is more of some subtle energy that it feels it's here. I think it feels it's here because of the eyes and like the majority of our senses are in the face, except the touch, but it's all over our body. But I have an interesting. Now I have been doing this meditation for many months. At the end of my practice, when I do the sadhana, shavasana. Sorry, when I do my shavasana, I lay down and think of all the points in my body, go around on the body to expand consciousness. And one interesting thing that I had not expected is like it's very easy to, with your eyes closed, to go around the upper parts of your body and the lower part, especially the toes. The, they're hard to feel them one by one with your eyes closed without anything touching them. So, yeah, I don't know what to do with that, but it's interesting how, in a sense, the mind is, or the stuff that this energy is overall the body, but there's definitely parts of the body, especially the lower part, that we are less conscious of. That obviously are there, and we obviously can feel them. Obviously, someone hit our toes, we feel it. But if you just lay down and focus on your toes, it's harder to focus on your fingers. I don't know if you have that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, my grandpa, he forever his job was he did like root canals on people. Like he's a dentist and he did root canals. And he always would tell me when I was younger, it was so hard and so difficult for people to come in for root canals because it's like he's going in and drilling into their face. And so we believe that we lie right behind the eyes. And I don't know whether that's true or not, whether is your finger more conscious than whatever lies behind your eyes. I don't know. I mean, we can chop off our finger and not lose conscious awareness, but we shoot ourselves in the head. That seems to be a different story. Or shoot ourselves in the finger.
Yeah,
So I think there's something to that, but that's part of this idea. What do they call it? Like non-dual awareness. So actually, and I know it's a big part of like Dzogchen stuff where you're trying to eventually have this kind of seeing through the glass of non-dual awareness, where the observer is not behind the eyes, but you can kind of turn this idea on the observer to look at whatever is outwardly observing, and then fully encapsulate that we are everything, including our fingers and toes.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. This observer and witness often comes into many ideas, spiritual ideas, or personal growth, or definitely coaching. So it's interesting, like also, as you said, just to also think of the witnesses coming out and see from outside in that sense. Really almost physical, that physical idea. Instead of, I often use it more closing your eyes and observe what is inside. And just that's definitely one of the use of the witness. But I love that you said that coming out literally and observe without living.
Yes.
Or at you somehow.
I think there's this app. It's called like the Waking Up app by Sam Harris, and he has a whole series by I forget what the person's name is of it's like a 10-part series of going through and kind of turning the eyes back on the observer. Which I think is really interesting if someone has never done that before. So it's a really fascinating exercise.
Oh yes, absolutely. We'll try that. So I also want to ask you about your experience with working with ketamine as a psychedelic. And I think you mentioned to me before that you studied a little bit how to use ketamine with tactile therapy. if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I went to a really interesting and fascinating lecture this past summer that was at like the MAPS conference in Colorado. It was given by the person who invented what they call IFS, Internal Family Systems Therapy. And he was giving a lecture and showing videos on the use of ketamine and internal family systems, intravascular ketamine injections for IFS couples therapy. And it was really fascinating to watch because it was as though these couples, you know, in IFS, they have this whole idea of protector parts and just these other parts. It's like it's called parts work, where there's different parts of us, and there's many different parts, but kind of these protective parts. For the first time, allowing their protectors to come down and having the couple kind of talk together, and without these protectors coming online, really moving through a lot of material in their relationship in such a short period of time, because they did not have these protective margins, which, you know, may have come from early childhood experiences, may have come from previous relationships or their relationships with their family members, all the above. But yeah, it was really fascinating. And I know, at least because I know you're in Italy, but I know in the States that they have now retreats for couples therapy and using ketamine, which is actually really cool.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that idea. That was, I think a couple is a great place for personal growth, if, especially both of the people in the couple. They want to do the work, and they will do the work together, and they see this as an opportunity for individual growth and growth as a couple. So it sounds amazing that there are this kind of retreats. I was actually in that. I was being a cheer up point also to offer couples retreats. You know, such important relationship in your life, so such an important foundation for also how you show up in the world.
Absolutely. That's, you know, I think that's where they can be some of the places where we can learn the most about ourselves, but about the way that we show up in the world. Some of these real deep, intimate relationships become a true reflection or a mirror of ourselves. And not just intimate relationships, but relationship with our families, relationships with our friends. And it can be, you know, a real swift kind of bonk on the head of reality. I always go back to this quote that I heard Ramdas say: "The moment that you believe that you are enlightened, go and spend time with your family."
Yeah,
that'll give you a real reality check.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great quote. That's true. It's true. Especially, family. On one hand, because it really it triggers a lot of old behavior, old patterns, right? And definitely, friends. Friends. I think probably friends. Yeah, friends as well, but the good friends that will help you. And intimate relationship, definitely. You are such in a vulnerable space. There's so many traumas. It's really opens up all these old traumas, and it's such a great opportunity for growth. If we are aware of them, or otherwise we may fall into the same pattern over and over again. Yeah, so that's so interesting that ketamine helps to, as I said, for couples to shut off, to turn off the protectors, as I said. So the part that will be the part that, for example, either one, right, yelling at the other, for example. or like becoming very defensive, and so not be able to actually open that communication and understand each other's and see into the other, and create that real intimacy, that real like being sort of partner in crime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, there's so much of it is, and also kind of, again, going back to the idea of giving this space, ketamine can give someone this space for a moment in
Mm-hmm.
time to allow the other person to express themselves, whatever their style is of fighting, having conflict, because you're not going to have an intimate relationship without conflict. That's just not a reality. So allowing that person to have their particular style of conflict, and instead of immediately kind of putting the guard up, putting the guard down for a moment and saying, okay, this is how this person expresses themselves. How can I sit with that and not let my previous triggers raise a red flag and then say, like, no, as soon as this happens, I'm going to do this. But allow oneself to listen, and most importantly, hear what is the person is actually feeling and not just saying. And then once you feel that, and coming at that again from a place of this compassionate inquiry, just being super curious, which again, super hard when you're in a relationship, but it can be something that can be learned and tried. I'm reading a really good book right now. Highly suggested, by the way. I think it's called Fight Right by John
Yeah.
and Lori Gottman, who created the Gottman method, and they have a love lab in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. It's pretty good so far.
Okay. Interesting. Nice. Yeah, that's interesting. So, well, I would take the suggestion. Yeah, I always thought like I think communication is also important, especially in couple. It's so important. And that creates everything on top of being so important when there is like there may be a fight, for example. And so that would be so interesting to have like I don't know, maybe I would try that with any of the patients who read that anymore, like sort of practicing fighting.
Yeah, I mean,
Or maybe sort of both.
it's gonna come up. It's going to come up, whether you're in a relationship for a few months or a few decades. Every single type of relationship, if it's a real relationship, has conflict. And conflict is not a negative thing. It is just part of being a human being. However, how we can navigate that conflict respectfully, with empathy and love, and hopefully with the feelings of having the best in mind that we can have for that other individual. That's what changes. Versus, I think they call it the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So these I don't know, these traits in a
Oh yeah,
relationship can
yeah.
have, and that's when it's gonna, that's Gloria John Gottman stuff. But yeah, there's other ways of being in the world that doesn't have to be like constantly on the defensive or feeling as though others are attacking us, and that includes in our intimate relationships.
All right, cool. So, just to conclude, I would like to ask you, share anything else you would like to share, or just if you want to share like a couple of tips, suggestions around how to approach psychedelic um and psychedelic-assisted therapy.
Yeah, I think for psychedelics and psychedelics-assisted therapy, I think first and foremost, everyone do your own research. Don't trust anything that you've heard, that other people have told you, but go out and really do your own research. As much as you can, figure out ways that if that's something one is interested in, that you can do it in a very safe container, whether it be going to Peru and sitting, for a month, or finding an underground guide, or doing ketamine, whatever it is, make sure it is safe and you feel safe. And whenever you don't feel safe, stand up for yourself and you're allowed to say something. I think that is the most important thing. kind of follow your gut, follow your intuition, and understand that everything in psychedelics is not just what you read in the media. It's not just rainbows and butterflies. There can be some potentially strange consequences if not done in the proper set and setting. Something called HPPD, hallucinogenic perception persisting disorder.
What is that
It's
again?
called hallucinogenic
HPD.
HPPD, hallucinogenic perception persisting disorder. That's a reality.
Okay.
Everybody Google that, look that up. Actually, Lori Mannix was specialized in this as well.
Okay.
But with that all being said, I think psychedelics can open us up to curiosity and open-heartedness can be very difficult to get otherwise in this 21st century world. And if one stays really curious and open to all of the experiences in life, not just what happens under the medicine, but continues to stay curious, continues to make an attempt to stay open, life can be pretty good. Life does not have to feel heavy and burdensome and rushed all the time. But you have to really work on this skill of just staying open and staying curious. At least for me. I don't know. I could be also making all this shit up. Like, I don't know.
It's amazing. Yeah, right. Okay, so staying curious. All right, so thank you, Sean, so much for coming to Harmoniously podcast. It was so great to have you. Thank you for all the insights and all the work you're doing. And thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, really appreciate it.